Hello and welcome to When Grooms Get Engaged, the podcast about a guy's perspective to wedding planning from two guys that are currently trying to survive their own. I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris. And each week we will talk about how we navigated a different part of the wedding planning journey, what we learned in the process, and what maybe we wish we had done differently. So, Steve, what are we talking about this week?
Oh, Chris, we are talking about the engagement ring. And I don't know about you, but for me, this was pretty stressful because I had zero idea about honestly anything going into the process. Were you clued in at all, or did you also kind of go in blind?
Kind of went in blind. I think the most important thing is doing some research before you go see anybody about a ring, right? Do some research at home, do some Googling, get familiar with some of the terms, and that way you can walk in with a little bit of knowledge, and then that way the jeweler is better able to help you along the way.
Yeah, and there's definitely no shortage of things to research, but I kind of want to take it a step back and just highlight all the decisions that you're about to make. You need to decide on a diamond shape. And fellas, they're not all the same. I thought every diamond looked identical. They're all the same diamond. They're not. There's like 30 different shapes. You need to decide on a metal band for the ring, right? You have different metals. You have gold, you have platinum, you have silver, you have white gold. You got to make that decision. You got to decide on a band style. There's different ways to make them unique, different adornments. And each one of these things adds time, it adds cost, it adds maintenance to it. So going in blind and then just having them bombard you with options is honestly just a disaster. So definitely do some preliminary research by yourself before you do go into this process.
Yeah, and I think one of the other important things to do is to kind of think about your budget ahead of time, because your budget's going to allow you to make some of these decisions or eliminate some options off the bat, right? Unless you have infinite money, which I don't. You want to have that set budget so that way, you're not overspending, and you can kind of be more choosy about the rate.
But just a word of caution on that, don't make too many decisions around it first. Chris, I don't know about you, but the one thing I did know about Ring is that I had to spend a certain amount of money on it, which at the end of the day doesn't actually tell you anything. It's more of like a box. So, yep, you're definitely gonna have to create a budget. We'll definitely go into that. But don't be too eager to just fill your budget from the get go.
Do you want to talk about the four C's and maybe get some of those definitions out there for everybody?
Yeah. So the first thing in your, engagement ring fact finding journey is the four C's, which is how every single center stone is essentially graded. It's cut, color, clarity, and carat. And depending on what type of stone you're getting, they're gonna increase the value and the cost of that stone to you. So, Chris, when you were looking, which one was the most important in your fact finding?
There were two. So, carrot is obviously going to be one of the most important factors, and maybe a term that everyone is already familiar with. That is the diamond's weight, not its size. So, there could be two diamonds of a similar carat that look vastly different and have a different shape. So, you just have to kind of take that into consideration. But carat obviously is going to be probably one of your first and most important decision factor. Are you doing a half carat, 1.5 as it goes on? And as it gets higher, it's going to be more expensive. And the carat is going to be the largest determining factor for the cost of the diamond.
Yeah. And right behind carat is the cut, which is essentially the proportion of the diamond, right? How big is its face? How full is its body? And how many facets it has. So when you see a diamond that's super sparkly, super shiny, like almost blinding, that's primarily due to the cut of the diamond. So the carat and the cut will be the things that, push your cost up the most out of the four C's.
Yeah, when you see cut, you can just think sparkle.
Shine, that Moana with the rock, the the crab and that
Yep.
song, Shiny, or is it Shiny or Spark? I don't know.
No, it's
I love that
shiny.
movie, but yeah, it's Shiny. Yeah, think that exactly. Um, and then you have color, which is essentially it's actually the absence of color.
Mhm.
How there's no yellow, there's no warmth in it, how opaque it is. And then you have clarity because
Mhm.
diamonds that are natural diamonds, they might have maybe some sediment in there, they might have maybe some contusions, they might have some debris that's stuck in the carbon when it was, getting pressurized to become a diamond. So if you have some of those things, it's obviously gonna, be a little cheaper because people don't want to see those in the diamond itself.
Yeah, if you wanna save some money, color and clarity is where you can kind of go to a lesser category. The color, there might be a warmer tint and it goes all the way up to like icy white. But really you don't notice that unless put that same diamond next to a diamond of a higher quality. But just on its by itself, you're not really going to notice that color unless it's like very yellow. But most diamonds you find at a jeweler are not gonna have that problem.
Yeah.
And clarity, as you said, there might be like little specks of sediment or something in the diamond as it gets created. But honestly, you're not really going to see that. Most of the categories are based on a 10x microscope, which not all of us have at the ready. So just looking at it with the naked eye, you're not going to see those blemishes.
Yeah, but it's good to know that you will definitely pay for it if you know, have a little bit something there. Maybe it's in a spot where you can't even see it anyway because it's going to be hidden by a band. But just one thing to consider. So, Chris, you Googled, you figured out your four C's. You're a semi-expert at this point. You kind of know what you're going for. What what should be your next step?
Talk to your partner is what I would suggest. Your partner is going to be the ones that's wearing the ring, right? And I think we're both proponents of them being involved in this process. So after you've done your preliminary research, I think it's time to get them involved. At the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of money on this ring or potentially a lot of money on this ring, and you want to make sure that your partner is absolutely in love with it. You're opening up that checkbook, so you both should fall in love with that ring. So I would recommend getting them involved. Sure, it ruins a little bit of the surprise, but trust me, I think they're going to be surprised no matter what. And we'll get to that in the later episodes when we're talk about proposing. But having your partner go along and be able to actually try on rings and see what they like is going to be an important step of this process.
And I cannot stress enough what Chris just said. Bring your partner in. I'm assuming if you're thinking about buying an engagement ring, you've obviously had talks. You're planning on being married at some point in the near future, so this shouldn't be too much of a surprise. But bring them in because God forbid you buy something that she hates or is indifferent to. You're just going to waste all this money for nothing. This is not the spot to have an ego. This is not the place where you can prove how well you know your partner by like surprising her with the exact thing that she wants. Say that for something else. Say that for something that's not, as serious. Bring her in from the very beginning so that you know exactly what she likes and that will help you, make your decision. Because, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of decisions to make and there's a lot of ways to personalize this ring, right? So figure out what she likes so that you can make the best decision as a couple.
Yeah, and the stone or the shape that she may think she likes at the beginning or having seen it in a magazine might be different once she actually tries it on. Until you try it on and see it on and how it looks on her finger, you're not going to know that from looking at a magazine or Google pictures or whatnot. So get them involved, have them go with you to the store, and it'll just be a much smoother process for you.
Yeah. And honestly, make this a date, right? These stores, you're going to be spending 5, 10, 15K most likely. These stores will wine and dine you a little bit. You're going to get
Mhm.
some prosecco. You're going to be in a room with just sparkly things everywhere. She's going to be so happy. She's going to be seeing all the shiny stuff. Look at what it looks like on her finger. You're going to get an idea of, what the prices are, right? Just kind of make mental notes. So like here, when you're first going shopping together, figuring out what you like, you're not going to be buying anything, right? It's a fact finding mission, but it can definitely be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Enjoy your champagne, right? Enjoy your time together. Make it like a little date, and just kind of take like notes in your head, kind of remember things that you like, that she didn't like, and I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, play around, try some rings on, have some fun. Don't think too much about it, and just kind of come away from the process with more knowledge at the end of it, and that way you can start making decisions later on. But for that day, have some fun.
Yeah, and yeah, you're going to be spending plenty of money later, but for now, right, just enjoy it. Figure out exactly what's good, and uh, if you're close with her friends, or like let's say she has siblings, definitely lean on them as well to kind of ask them like what she did like and what she didn't like, depending on how much of a surprise you may or may not want to make this, right? How obvious do you want to be with your ring purchasing?
Yeah, if you want to go the true surprise route, yeah, get her best friend, get her sister or the person she's closest with involved, and that way you can try to find out what they might like before you get to the store, and you might be able to purchase the ring purely based on their feedback because they might have shared everything with their best friend or family member. But in absence of that, I still would recommend going with them and having them involved in this process. It's just
Hmm.
it's going to be so much better for you. Steve, what shapes are out there?
So Chris, I'm gonna be honest with you, I completely forgot already. Um, there's a lot of shapes. I know we went with an oval, which is a classic shape that's kind of coming back in
Mhm.
style again.
Yep,
You have rounds, which are
round.
your traditional diamonds that everyone probably thinks of. The Tiffany's Centerstone that's a round. I'm
Yep,
pretty sure
that
it's a
that
round. I hope
circle
we don't get
that circle looking diamond. Yep.
yeah, I hope we don't get fact checked on this.
No, it's
Um,
round. You're
Thank
good
you
so
for.
far.
You have emerald cuts, which are essentially rectangles. You have
Yeah, those don't have a lot of facets, so it almost looks like clear glass, and a very classic Art Deco kind of look. So it's very interesting, and I think that's also coming back in style now. So it's a little bit less shiny, but it has that classic feel.
yeah, but then aren't there like princess cuts, which are emeralds with more facets? I think.
So yeah, so it's they're similar shapes. So an emerald cut will be a little bit more rectangular. A princess cut is a square cut. So think princess cut, but just square. It has a lot of facets, and it's designed to maximize that sparkle, just with a slightly different shape. And um, you'll save some money going with a princess cut versus a round cut because obviously the round circular cut is the most popular. So you can maybe think about a princess cut and shed a few dollar signs.
Hey, why not? So yeah, you have that. Then you have teardrop cuts. You have pear cuts. You
Wow,
have.
wow, you're nailing them all so far.
Oh man, I know. Thank you. I think you have triangle cuts or like pyramid cuts or something.
Trillions, yeah, those are very
Trillions.
interesting. I think that's one of the newer shapes out there. So it's similar to a princess cut in that it's designed to maximize facets, but it's more of a triangular shape. Very cool and unique looking on some rings. If you want something a little bit,
Yeah. So there are options, right? Which is why you bring your fiance to so that she can tell you what she likes. Because let's say she likes a round and you get her an emerald. Those two look nothing alike. They
yep,
look very different. And they look very different on the finger. Because maybe she will like the round because she has a specific finger shape and length, which looks better on her. And the emerald just goes completely against that. You do not want to be that person because that's just going to be stressful. So bring her in, decide what kind of centerpiece you want. But Chris, besides just that, you also got to figure out what kind of band you put the centerpiece in.
yep. You have white gold, yellow gold, platinum. You have a whole lot of choices when it comes to bands. Some are gonna scratch a little easier than others. Some have more intricate designs. Beyond just the metal, you can find bands that are twisted or have designs inlaid into them, or you can get carvings on the inside and interior of the ring. So there's a lot to think about as you kind of drill down into the ring shopping process. Obviously, you're going to start high level, as we talked about, with the four C's and the general shape. But then things start getting you get into the minutia of ring designing with the band and some other details, especially when you think about accent stones. Do you want baguettes, which are small little kind of rectangular, can be like triangular shaped diamonds that are on the sides or accent at the center stone. The other thing that can be a decisive decision point would be pave diamonds. Do you want to talk about pave diamonds, Steve?
Yeah. So in case the center stone that you're buying isn't enough diamonds for you, you could also adorn the band with smaller diamonds. You can either do the full band, right, just all the way around it. You can just do the prongs. Um, you can do a halo of pave diamonds around your center stone. You can do a hidden halo, which is just pave diamonds underneath the diamonds. So if you look at it, bird's eye view down, you won't see it. But if you look at it from the side, you'll see the additional halo. So there are ways to kind of make your ring a little bit more unique and add a little bit more sparkle in other
Hmm.
areas of the ring if you're looking for it. Just one thing to note, each one of these decisions will add either cost to the ring. So platinum is the most expensive metal. Gold, 14 karat, 14 or 18 karat. I believe, Chris, is it 14 or 18 karat that they make the rings out of?
I think you can get both. You will not be able to get 24 karat as it's usually too soft, but you
Okay.
should be able to find 14 karat or 18 karat.
Okay, so you have different gold carats depending on how soft or hard you want the metal to be. So that will be a cost difference. And then you can have white gold, which is just gold dipped in it's kind of like a paint for jewelry. However, that adds additional maintenance. Every couple of years, you have to get it dipped again, otherwise, it'll peel off. The pave diamonds in the ring, if you put a pave in platinum, platinum is it's heavy, but it's malleable. So after time, some of the stones might actually kind of come out of the ring because the metal just like moved just a little bit so that a stone can pop out. So you have to check those maybe once a year with your jeweler. So all these, you know, options, yes, they may make it more unique, but they might also add cost and also more maintenance. Just things that you kind of want to think about and figure out if they are worth it to you or not. The last thing you have to decide on is how thick the band is. And then this is also something you have to talk to your jeweler. If you pick a big stone, you shouldn't do a too thin of band. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to support it. But at the same time, I know in style right now is thinner bands. Chris, I know for us, we did a oval center stone with, I believe, a 1.5 millimeter band.
Wow, that's thin.
I believe 1.5 or 2 millimeters. It was definitely on the thinner side. Because I know that's what my fiance liked.
Yeah, just for reference, I was looking at wedding wedding rings for myself, and for the guys' rings, generally they come in generally starting at 3 millimeters to 6, so much thicker than that. So just for perspective,
Oh, and also, guys, we are going to be buying a ring for ourselves, but that's in the
that's
future.
down the road.
It's down the road. um, yeah. So you've kind of now.
If I can
Oh,
just
sorry.
interrupt really quick, going back 1 second. So, Steve touched on an important point that, maintenance is going to be part of this, right? You can't just buy it and expect it to look the same forever. So, when you are considering where to buy your ring, you should think about what the warranty, is and what kind of protection plans they offer. A lot of times for a minimal additional cost, that, a fraction of the cost of the total ring, they'll protect it for the lifetime. And so if you go with a reputable jeweler, a jewelry store that's been in business for a while, you can have that protection and go in and maybe replace some of those accent stones or side stones or have some protection there. So that will be also something that might factor into your decision is what kind of protection plan you can get for the ring. And I do recommend getting it.
Yeah, Chris, that's a very good point. And even if there's nothing wrong with your ring, you could just pop in, they can clean it for you, which is
Mhm.
really nice. Have it look as sparkly as shiny as new. They will also re-dip it for you if you have, let's say, rose gold or white gold. And then let's say one of your pave stones is coming loose, or it's completely jettisoned and you lost it, they can replace it or fix it for you. So these are definitely things to think about, and it's a service that your jeweler offers. So definitely make use of it.
So now that you are armed with all of this knowledge, I think it's time to circle back to the dreaded budget.
Mm, the
Yeah.
budget.
So kind of the advice you might have already heard that most guys receive is that it should be 3 months' salary. I think at the end of the day, do what's best for you. You don't need to stick with that. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb. So a good place to start, but don't feel the pressure that you need to do that exact number or higher. I think try to take some ego out of it and do what's right for your budget and where you are with your finances.
Now, Chris, I think I figured out where this number comes from. Um, this is just a theory. I have no proof, but it makes sense. From the time that you order your ring to when you get it, it'll take you about 2 to 3 months. So I honestly think someone was like, "Hey, it's took me 3 months. Maybe this is what the budget should be because that's how long I gotta wait to pay for it." So that's probably where it comes from. But like looking back on it, also make sure you have time. Like if you need
Yeah.
this ring like within a certain date, you need to know that it's going to take you at least 3 months to get it from the time that you make the decision on what kind of setter stone, what kind of band, what kind of metal to when you have it in hand. 2 to 3 months is a very safe estimate for that.
Yeah, if you go to a jeweler and you're not making many customizations, many requests, you can probably get it sooner than that, but a lot of places will allow you to do a lot of customization, and if you once you start going down that road, it can easily spiral into 2 or 3 months, so just take that into consideration.
Yeah, definitely give yourself more time than you think you need. But yeah, we kind of know what we like, we know what we need, and then we can use this information to create a budget. So a lot of the jewelers, right? Blue Nile, Brilliant Earth, James Allen, all these people, you can kind of go in and plug and play and see like what a center stone will cost. So let's say if
Mhm.
you want a 2 carat diamond, right, that has a certain cut, color, clarity, you can just plug that in and see what that will cost and see if it's something realistically you can afford, or if you kind of maybe go a little bit smaller, or hey, maybe the cost is better than you thought, you can actually go bigger, right? So this is kind of when you can start building your budget about what's reasonable, what's in your means, what's not, based on what your fiance actually wants.
Yeah, play around with those sliders, like, a lot of the websites now are just so user-friendly, so you can practically design the whole thing online and see how it'll look, the finished product, and you'll see, like, renderings of even with pictures of, like, hands and stuff, so you can see how it would look on an actual human, so, um, things are very interesting and very intuitive, online, and, yeah, definitely play around so that you can see what's reasonable for you, because when you walk into the jeweler as well, like, it's going to be like, "What what carat size are you thinking about?" It's gonna be the first question, and,
Hmm.
if you play around online a little bit beforehand, you'll be able to become, armed with that knowledge.
Yeah, and the worst thing you want to do is go into a jeweler and be like, "Hey, I'm looking to spend no more than X," because when that happens, you're going to spend X, right? Like, don't go in
Usually
just
X
wanting to
usually
spend the
X
money.
plus a little, right?
Yeah,
They're always gonna
always a
upsell you
little,
no matter what.
always a little. Yeah, because people don't remember to take into account the band cost. It's another like 2K probably on the back end. Um, so yeah, do that. But now, Chris, while you're doing that, I'm sure you've noticed that you can pick either lab grown or real diamonds. Can you kind of give us a rundown on what those are?
Sure. So natural diamonds are obviously the ones that are found in the earth that are dug up by machines or hands. So what you traditionally think of as a diamond, but now there are lab grown diamonds. Typically, there are two different processes. One of them is just like creating a lot of pressure inside of a capsule with a like kind of a seed of carbon, and that'll create the diamond. And a lab grown diamond is chemically and under a microscope exactly the same as a natural diamond that's found in the earth, just created in the laboratory. The nice thing about lab grown diamonds is that they are typically about half the cost and are typically also a little bit more sustainable. A lot of them are use hydropower, and like obviously there's a finite number of diamonds in the earth, which why they're they have rarity and why they're so expensive. But getting that lab grown diamond can definitely help with that budgetary restrictions if you have one.
Yeah, so going from real to lab grown is the single biggest thing you can do to kind of control your budget while still getting a stone the size you want. And then um, just know that while they are exactly the same, I think upon looking at them, they not quite. I've noticed that real diamonds tend to be like a little warmer, and lab grown diamonds tend to be much icier. Um, so take that for
Yeah,
what it's worth.
they can be pickier in the lab, right? Like you have to
Oh
work
yeah,
with what the earth gives you, but in the lab, if you have 10 or 20 in a batch, you can get rid of half of them if they're not cutting mustard.
yeah, and you're more likely when you go into lab, the floor, right, like the worst diamonds will tend to be higher graded than like
Yes.
the worst real diamonds. Because
Yeah.
like again, you're not gonna like bring out a lab grown, bad diamond. Like there's no point. As opposed to real, you just kind of, what you mine is what you mine. You have to find a use for it. Um, and then let's say you do want a giant rock in a unique shape, you know? Let's say you want like a 5 carat trillion, right? Hypothetically. Um, you're more likely to get a good quality diamond in that size with a lab grown diamond. Just just honestly. And then as these diamonds get bigger, like Chris mentioned, they're about 2x the real versus lab, but that's 2x at like the 1 to 2 carat range. Once you start going to 3, 4, and 5 carats, you get 3x, 4x, 5x, just because it's so much rarer to get that size in a real.
Yeah, and a quick tip here too is, the half measures of carats, a point 0.5, a 1, a 1.5, you will see a big spike in cost once you kind of hit those benchmark numbers. So you can also try to find some wiggle room there, like if you try to go just under. So if you're thinking of getting a 1 carat diamond, look at maybe a 0.98, a 0.97. You're right on that mark, but you'll save yourself some money there. Or if you're thinking 1.5, look at a 1.45, and you should see significant savings just going just under those benchmarks.
Yeah, Chris, that's very good advice. And you're not gonna really tell a difference. A
Not at
three
all.
carat versus like a 2.97 to the naked eye will look the same. And then conversely, you don't have just because you can afford it, you don't necessarily have to do the biggest diamond. Let's say your fiance is like, "Hey, I want a 2 carat," and you bust out a 5 carat instead. That might be excessive, right? This is you don't need to just go overboard just to go
Mhm.
overboard. Kind of figure out what she wants, what she likes, like what's reasonable for the both of you.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on whether she plans on wearing it day to day or not, right? Like typically, she's going to wear this engagement ring during the time you're planning the wedding. And then once you get married, is she going to wear both the wedding band and the engagement ring, or is she just going to wear the wedding ring? Something to think about. So
Mm.
she's only gonna break it out for special occasions. You don't necessarily also if you get this huge rock, you don't necessarily wanna be traveling to other countries, with it potentially. Just, keep yourself safe. Don't travel with that much bling out there.
Yeah, Chris, you actually mentioned the wedding band real quick. Uh, it is worth mentioning that the wedding band and the engagement ring are two very different rings. And I say this as someone who thought they were the same ring before I started doing the shopping. Just one small thing to consider on the engagement ring, a lot of women like nesting their wedding band underneath their engagement ring.
Yep.
So talk to your jeweler to make sure that the design of your ring doesn't kind of impede them being able to nest it. Um, I will say this gave me a lot of trouble because I couldn't find any resources on like how much clearance it has. But most rings are already built for it. Um, but it doesn't hurt to just to ask, just to make sure.
Yeah, if you go to a lot of traditional jewelry stores, like, there'll be matching sets, that are kinda complementary to each other. So you can always look for those or start there at least and see if you like that. If not, you can go another route. And then some people choose to keep them separate. You can also get them fused so they become like one ring. So you have a lot of options to think about later on. But
Mm.
let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on the engagement ring.
The One Ring and in the darkness bind them, Chris. You know,
That's right.
some good Lord of the Rings stuff there. Yeah. So these are all things to consider. You made your choices. You've kind of narrowed it down. You're deciding real versus lab grown. Definitely talk to your partner. Maybe one is more important than the other. That's something to consider. Now, Chris, after this, how do you pay for this thing? Like, what options are there out there for you?
So a lot of jewelry stores will have a payment option through them. So almost kind of like a credit card, you can put a deposit down and then just make monthly payments to them over the course of a year, 2 or 3 years, just like regular installments. So that's an option. If you're thinking that, obviously that protects you a little bit usually because it's like low interest rate with the jewelry stores. Now, if you have all or most of the money saved up already, I might recommend thinking if you're thinking about opening up a new credit card, you can put that ring purchase on that new credit card. Because a lot of like the major brands now, the major credit cards, if you spend, 3, 4, 5,000 within the first 3 months, you get a whole bunch of extra bonuses, whether, it's airline miles or bonus points for travel, for hotels. So that's definitely an option to think about if you're in the market, to kind of double dip your money, right? You're going to get, more bang for your buck by doing it that way. But I think I'd only recommend going the credit card route. Again, if you have the funds already locked up and saved, that way you can just pay it off immediately and you don't have to worry about those high interest rates.
Yeah, and if you are going to do that, I'm a big proponent of the Chase Sapphire Reserve personally, right? You get
No
like
sponsorship, unfortunately.
no, not yet, Chris. We'll work on it though. But yeah, you get like $850 worth of points, which if you use for travel is worth like 1,400 bucks or something. So, I mean, you're making a big purchase, right? Now you can also get a mini vacation on the back end for free, which is
Mhm.
awesome.
Oh, honeymoon, honeymoon.
Pre moon, whatever we want to call it, right? Or maybe your
Bachelor party, bachelor party.
bachelor party. There we go. Now you're thinking, Chris. She's already getting the ring. We should get the bachelor party. Um, but yeah, these are definitely things to think about. And then I know, Chris, I know you went to a jeweler, but I actually went to a wholesaler. So gentlemen, if you guys have friends that are recently married, maybe ask them where they got the ring. It's possible that someone has a ring guy. Um, and if you're comfortable with this, usually these transactions will be cash only. And they're essentially like distributors, wholesalers, right? You will get a little bit of a lower price for the same
Mhm.
quality just because, there's no cost going to advertising, marketing, any of that. But again, it does sound a little shady. So if you are open to just a little bit of risk, you might be able to get a little bit of a discount on the back end. So just ask your friends that have already gotten married or have purchased their rings. Maybe someone knows someone.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember. We talked offline. We won't get into specific numbers, but I think from what you told me outside of the podcast, you probably saw 15-20% savings going wholesaler route.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a decent number. Absolutely, yeah. It's almost the amount of points you would have gotten on the back end, right?
Got to get my chase points
I mean, hey, they do a lot. They do a lot.
to go a long way.
Yeah. Okay. One more thing I kind of have to bring up. I know this is a wedding planning podcast, and I know that we're starting on the engagement ring. Whatever this ring ends up costing you, it is not part of the wedding budget.
Yep.
This is separate. This is before. Don't try to sneak it in. Don't try to bring it up. That is gonna be figured out later. This is pre. This is the prequel. The leading up to it.
Definitely. And I think one other piece of advice, obviously have a discussion with your partner on where you are with your relationship. If you're starting this process, make sure you guys are both in a secure spot and love each other and are ready to take the next step both together.
Wait. So, Chris, you're saying definitely don't do a surprise.
I am saying do not do a surprise for probably the 5th time on this podcast to make sure they are involved in this entire process. You will thank me.
Yeah, this is the start of you two kind of thinking as one. So definitely treat it as such.
All right, Steve. So now that you've picked out your ring, I think next episode we will discuss what you should consider when proposing to your partner.
Ooh, and there's a lot to consider. Chris, thanks for hanging out. Everyone, thanks for listening, and we'll see you here next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.